Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Community Table Talk. This is our part 2 of responding to racism. And once again, I am joined by Niran from Community Justice Initiatives and Mifrah from the Coalition of Muslim Women. Thank you both for taking this time to come and talk with us again.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and if anyone who is watching has not seen the first one, I will post the link in the YouTube description below, and you'll be able to kind of get caught up. Our first session here was describing Islamophobia, racism, hate crimes, hate incidents, just giving some definitions of some of the phrases that we may be using. So if you'd like some more background information on that, check out the first video. And let's go right into this segment. So I think at this point, we've kind of covered some of the basis of how things happen, why things happen. But now what does someone do if they find themselves in a conflict that may be related to some of the racism or hate crimes we talked about?
Okay, so if, for example, in the housing setting or situation, there are resources that you can use. One of them would be to first maybe talk about it with whoever is in that housing, who is the staff person, who we have as at Sulah and the level of Coalition of Muslim Women, we have meetings. So whenever you have such issues, you can contact the staff person. Then they will check in with you if, just to see or discuss some of these options with you and the nature of what we do at Sulah. And then if it's something that, because it has to be something voluntary, if it's something that you think, want to address further, then we'll be happy to talk with you, understand what the issues are, and see, what your needs are, and that would determine how we respond. At CJI, at the level of Sulah at CJI, we use mediation as a way to kind of address some of this conflict between parties. And if it's something that you think would be appropriate in your situation, yes, we would discuss that with you. And if you have other needs as well, even though we cannot render that, we could point you to where you can get that.
Yeah, so as I said before, that we have a helpline in which you can call us, email us, send us a voice message, or text us. And you can go to our website, it's reportinghate.ca, and I can also provide you with the number. And the idea behind is that we will do a needs assessment. There can be a whole range of requirements from the victim. It could be just like something as mild as, I just want my neighbor to understand what I'm going through. Or it could borderline be, very physical, and we would really recommend that you call 911 if it's an emergency. And even if it's not an emergency, we have direct line with the WRPS because we have a collaboration with them. And sometimes people are just too scared to go through the hoops when contacting the police, not knowing where they will land. So we have a direct line, and the police services have been very supportive in this. And so we can get them in touch with the right resources in the police system immediately. But that is, again, these are two extremes. It's a whole range of spectrums. Yes, and I said sometimes you just want mediation, and that is where Sulah comes in, that we just recommend them to Sulah, and we get both the parties to sit down together. And we have a range of one-on-one support. Sometimes you need counseling. And we do have some MOUs with social services. Sometimes you just want language translation because you just don't know how to articulate what's happening with you. So we have that sort of assistance that we can provide. Sometimes it could be workplace discrimination, and there could be an outright discrimination, and we can connect you with the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal for that, for example. So basically, we will connect the dots for you. We'll just, be the person to get you the right resources to advocate for you. If there's something that's happened in the school, for example, we have collaboration with the Waterloo District School Board, for example. So there are so many resources available. I just want people in the community to know that you don't have to let this slide. You can just come forward and ask for help. And there could be a whole range of assistance that could be provided depending on what your need is.
Yeah, I imagine if this is a system that you're trying to navigate on your own for the first time, it can be extremely overwhelming and disheartening if you're not able to find the support that you need. Because, like we talked about in the first video, it's such a harm to that personal identity, right? And it's scary to put yourself out there and try to find that support.
Yeah.
And there's also the possibility of reaching out on your own to some of the Sulah contacts, just to have a sense or make sense of what may have impacted you, just to see what your options might be. So apart from just going to the management or the staff, but usually, we would uh, have our contacts, available through maybe your, uh, you know, um, maybe there's an information board in your, you know, housing facilities and all of that. So where you could reach us, but because of COVID, a lot of, and we also want to do something with, maybe because of COVID, that might not be visible at this point in time, to have regular meetings with stakeholders and people who are likely to be affected by this incident before the incidents even happen. So because we want to have that presence in their mind so that when it happens, they know where to call, just to kind of have a sense or make sense of what had just happened to you, and go through with that with you and then see where you want to take it to. And when we say mediation, it's not a substitute for even a case where you want to maybe challenge that in court or with the police. So it's just a case by case situation. But we would prefer in a situation where it is still possible to maintain relationship, to, see how well we can intervene in bringing that relationship back, in repairing that relationship.
And that's so important, not only for that the unity and the health of the community itself, but if it continues to perpetuate and we act in a way that doesn't have the best interest of the relationships in mind, that can be a very dangerous situation for the person who's being harmed by this. Even if we are looking at eviction or if we're looking at other actions, they're not instantaneous, and that is a lot of time for those people to have to live close to one another.
And even just to be the nuance around how we get to repairing relationship, it, there has to be accountability. The armed doer, has to recognize or acknowledge, you know the impact of what they are doing to the other person, and they have to also hear from the other person. So you can see that it's not just we have to resolve. It's a journey, and for someone who is open and willing to participate, it means that person, you know is willing to make amends, to learn. So that's why we encourage mediation or restorative justice approach to dealing with some of these, identity on crises.
I just want to add that how important this word Sulah is, because in so many languages, including mine, whenever there is a conflict, we always say, "Why don't you try Sulah?" And this is no independent of this program that we share with the CGI, but there's such an integral word in our language. Try the other long form is Sulah Rahmi, like mercy and Sulah, and see if that works out for you, whether it's conflicting spouses or neighbors or siblings for that matter, and there's so much emphasis in our culture to get two people together to form a bond despite their differences. Like, we ask the community to come together and get together and mediate, for example. And I love the word Sulah when I first came across it, because it's such a part of my active vocabulary in my own language.
I like that it's also an introduction to learning a little bit more. I like that it opens that conversation around just the language differences in the culture, and how it is an integral part of of resolving conflict. I mean, I love it for so many reasons, but that one in particular about that building understanding between. Yeah. So I'm just curious, other than Sulah and Coalition Mesawar and CJI, are there other agencies involved in this kind of work? You know, if somebody is being harmed, are there other resources that kind of come in and support as well?
I know for anyone who's experiencing Islamophobia and racism at the national level, there is NCCM, that is National Council of Canadian Muslims, and they do have local chapters. For example, they have their campus liaisons in the different educational institutes around Kitchener-Waterloo, like in Conestoga College and Wilfrid Laurier University. So that for sure, I know they are very strong advocates for anti-Islamophobia, anti-racist work. And there's also the anti-racism network. I think I'll just have to check the name exactly, but it's led by someone whom I know. But again, it's at the national level, all Canada, pan-Canada. As I told you, I'm new to this region, so I'm still learning about the resources. I'm sure Niran would be more qualified to answer that.
Yes. So, yes. So, for example, as we mentioned before, that we don't believe maybe restorative justice approach will always answer all questions, but you can also, check Human Rights Legal Support Center for possible mediation and settlement, where you believe, because that's an arm of the Ontario Human Rights Commission as well. So you can it's just see what is there to, um, maybe if it fits into some of your needs, maybe they may, have a different approach that, would give you more than what maybe any of us can give you. So we are open to whatever eventually meets your needs. So it's not us making that choice for you, but we just want you to understand as well that we are here, and this is our own purpose, to kind of build social relationship where we can. So because we believe it's good for the victim, it's good for even the offender to learn and take accountability, and also it's good for the community. So there, Ontario Human Rights Commission is very, broad in terms of the nature of the issues they look at, and you can check that arm of the uh, Ontario Human Rights Commission, which is the Human Rights Legal Support Center, for that. And also within CJI, we have so many other programs, like we have conflict coaching, where you think, okay, I don't even want government agency or this approach, but can I also learn how to deal with this situation, from my own part? We have programs that, could offer you that kind of opportunity at CJI, and if it relates to, other issues of even sexual harassment, you can also have, we have some of other programs within CGI that can address that. Or if you want to have maybe just, normal conflict resolution or mediation, around community issues as well, CGI too, has that kind of program. So talking to us will, as we said earlier, kind of give you opportunities to see where or what resources we have, in our list that may help you, even though maybe Sulah is not the ideal approach to your issue.
And I think that's a wonderful starting point as well. Like you said, even if it's not something that you can help directly with, that help of navigating those complex systems is always going to be appreciated. Um, I would also like to, just in the moment, discuss what we can do in terms of preventative work. So if we look at a housing provider who knows that they're going to have, let's say, 5 refugee families moving in to whatever complex it may be, is there anything they can do prior to the new tenant move in to help acclimate the community for a change or provide more resources? Like, are there any ideas there around uh, putting some things in place to help prevent these situations?
It's always a good idea, I think, to ask for help when you don't know what to do. And depending on what kind of community members are going to be coming in the housing in the near future, it's always good to reach out to those resources. For example, if there's a Syrian refugee, there are a lot of Syrian organizations within Kitchener-Waterloo as well who can help you navigate what it means to be from that culture. And with someone who's coming from Southeast Asia, for example, there's so many other organizations on that front who can, help you understand that culture. So just reach out. There are so many amazing organizations locally and nationally, and they are so ready to help. If it's a Muslim family, for example, that's coming, we at the Coalition Muslim would be so happy to share any sort of resources that you may want. And we know that we're not qualified to speak for all communities, but I'm sure there are enough resources that we can reach out to.
Yes, I think from the point of view of the managers, I mean who are welcoming new people from different cultural background and all of that, you have to create that environment for cultural safety, situations. You have to cultural safety. You have to also do that sensitivity. That cultural sensitivity has to be there. That the people you're working with, or the people you're rendering service to, are diverse people. You have to be culturally sensitive to that reality, and also meet with them, interact with them, get to know them, share their story, just listen to them, so when we interact, we know more about one another, and that helps us to kind of um, you know he raised some assumptions that we have, or some of the things or perceptions, or some of the things that we kind of have in our subconscious that may be prejudice, prejudicial, to how we interact with them, and also we want to be part of your work as at Sulah. We want to see how we can, maybe be part of your orientation, when they are coming in, maybe just give them the awareness that you're coming to this place. If you have this type of experience at any point in time, you can talk to these people. It's not by just a way to prepare them, to show that this is an environment where we are culturally sensitive to your needs, and we know that conflict is part of something we cannot wish away. It will happen. So when it does, how have you laid the foundation for addressing that problem? So I think it's very important.
Yeah, I just want to also add that I know some landlords may not want to take the extra effort of going and contacting relevant organizations. But as Niran said, sometimes the messaging goes a long way. If the person, the managerial team, sends out appropriate emails saying that we have a diverse communities living in this building or this community, and it is the management's tone that we treat each other with respect, because sometimes you can't do that whole cultural learning in a short period of time. Maybe some people have other commitments or whatever it can be, but we can all be a little kinder. We all can be a little more, we can all step back before passing out any judgments or saying things. And if that sort of messaging comes from the management saying that we are a tolerant society, we are a tolerant community, I think that'll go a long way in setting the tone of how people interact with each other.
And I think for some folks, it may seem like a monumental task to go out and talk to people and get this sensitivity training. But what's even more work is dealing with all the conflict. I think it's short-term pain for long-term gain in that sense. I mean, time is such a valuable commodity right now, but spending that half an hour to learn about your new tenants and reach out and just explore a little bit more about that culture can prevent so many issues going forward.
My friend in Hamilton told me one time that when he got this place, he said his landlord told him, "No one comes into this house until I interact with you. It doesn't even matter whether it's in person or it's on the phone. I want to hear you. I want to know you, even if it's just 5 minutes. Hey, how are you doing? The way you just get to talk, get to know, and like Mifrah mentioned, creating the impression, or actually getting people to know that you care about how people respect or treat one another in your property is important. That email will go a long way to give support to whoever, maybe is not even sure what they're going to get, but you already thought, you're telling them this is a safe place. And if there's any reason whatsoever where there's any issue, create the avenue for that help. You can also team up with Sulah, that use our contact, that whenever you experience this, any conflict or any issue, you know reach out to this Sulah. It's a way to kind of work together to create the community, the type of community that we all want to see.
And those 5-minute phone calls also show you are welcome here, and I'm excited to have you here, and you are a valuable part of our community. All right, so it looks like we have about 5 minutes left. Is there anything that you want to leave with everyone, or anything you would like to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
I think it's just to reiterate the fact that we are willing, we are happy, we are ready to work with you in any way that will make our community, um, safe, and the people united and live in harmony. You know.
And I just want to say to people that just step back and just think about it, that diversity is not going away. We are here for the long haul. So it really makes sense to, make the most, to optimize it, this opportunity, to know your neighbors better. And as you said, you don't have to be friends, but we can be civil to each other. We can be respectful of each other. You don't have to accept any else's culture. You don't have to adopt their ways. All you need to do is give people their space, give them respect, and just, be welcoming. Yeah, that's all that's needed. You don't have to really go out of the way.
And coming from a position of privilege in this conversation, I would also like to speak to folks who are maybe in the same situation I am about the concept of failing forward. There are going to be times where you are coming from the place of best intentions, and it will not be received that way, or it does not come across that way. And that's okay, as long as you learn from it and be willing and open to receive that feedback, whether you are a tenant, whether you are a landlord, whether it is a coworker. That is how we grow, and growth sometimes is uncomfortable, and it's okay. I've never been in a situation where I was intentionally welcome and opening and made a mistake where people were offended.
That is true. That is true. And I just want to add that it's not like the onus on just one community to understand at the other community. Like, even as a colored person, I have to understand the cultures of other colored people. It's not just a homogeneous environment. Like, people come from different countries. Like, Niran and I come from very different cultures, and it's important that we understand each other too, even though we both identify as people of color. Yes, so it is on everybody. It's not just on one community. It's on everybody to make that effort to understand the other person and to be respectful.
Yeah, and the whole idea is not to judge, to label, but to find a way to talk about the things that affect us, so that we can grow and learn and become that one community.
Well, I think on that note, I love that, the idea of unity and community, and being open and welcoming, and I think that's a great place for us to end this conversation. Just for today, I mean, this conversation should happen every day and every situation possible, and I'm sure both of your organizations will probably have some contact from our housing providers looking for more information. But thank you both so much. All of your information will be in the description below if people want to get a hold of you. But again, I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today and share this information. And I'm excited to see how people put this into practice.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us, Danielle.